Hit the lights!
You've discovered the Halfwatt Podcast. We want to educate and entertain by tapping into the most trusted source of new technology, the ones installing and innovating it. You, the tradespeople that build from the ground up. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, veteran contractors, and even some young blood.
Welcome back to another episode of the Halfwatt Podcast. First and foremost, I have to apologize to you guys. We haven't been very active lately. We're still kind of struggling finding recording space. We had the studio shut down, and then we thought we had a place, and then it didn't quite work out. So we're still trying to kind of get our stuff together. We're going to be doing some giveaways on the Instagram here pretty soon, so keep your eyes out for that. We did find a new recording spot with the State of Oregon Apprenticeship Program, IEC. Shout out to them. Love them. That's where I went for my apprenticeship, journeyed out there. So they're coming through for me once again. What a great episode. I think this is going to be personal friend of mine and Tyler's. Doug is going to be on the show. I've known him for not that long, only like 3 years. Just a
little bit,
just
right?
a little bit,
tiny bit. But thank you for having me. I appreciate this,
dude. It's gonna be awesome. No, he's great. He's a fire tech, and he is one of the best talkers I know.
Thank you.
You rival myself.
Thank you very much.
And I'm very excited to get started.
Yeah.
So, tell me, just so that they can get a little familiar with you.
Sure.
Little bit of background.
All right. Yeah. So, when I was younger, getting out of high school, I just had a kid, and, I got told, hey, go do this electrical job. And I was like, all right. So, stepdad was a foreman. So it was kind of nice. It was tough because, there's a lot of expectation that comes when you are the child of the leader, basically. Right. And I would never wanted to take advantage of anything, right? And I always wanted to make the guys see that I was one of them over, I wasn't trying to be favored. So I took a lot of pride into just trying to be a good worker.
Yeah. It's hard being coach's kid.
It is, dude. It really is, and I think it's the direction you choose to take.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Because some people will take advantage. Oh, I'm the coach's kid. I can slack off. I can do this. I can do that. And
right.
I tried to not take that approach because I wanted the trust of the guys I was working with.
Right.
Right. That was where my head was at. So, I started doing that, and it was just data center stuff. We just ran whips, learned power, learned cabling, how to color 3-phase panels and all that kind of jazz. And it was real simple monkey work, you know. And then I moved on up, and I got involved with my my ex's uncle, who did street lighting. He was high voltage outside wire linesman, right? And this was in Oakland. So
nice.
We used to drive in early in the morning. Yeah. We would he would get up in the bucket, and he would change out the halogens for LEDs.
Okay.
So I was assisting him with that. Yeah, I did that. And then I kind of stumbled into Red Hawk, which was they basically needed somebody that could run conduit at Tesla.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I got my introduction to fire.
Not a lot of you guys have heard of them.
No, not at all. No, very, very small company. Their shop was only about 5 million square feet, so it's not very big.
Okay.
Very tiny.
A lot of room.
Yeah. We literally had to ride bikes to get from point to point in that place. Yeah, it was crazy. Really good experience though. Had an awesome install manager who was a great electrician. Threw me into the fire, and that's just how he kept it with me. It was feet to the fire. It was, you're either going to do this or I'm going to let you go. And I was not going to be let go.
Yeah.
So
and then that was still in Oakland?
So no, that actually was in Fremont.
Okay.
And not too far away.
Yeah,
kind of the same area. But yeah, they had the plant in Fremont. And so I did that for a while. And then after about 2 years or so, they threw me in a truck and said, all right, we're gonna send you off. So then I was sent around just doing like small TIs and stuff. San Jose, San Francisco, driving around, and doing little TIs here and there. learn my way through fire with that. And then I got sent down to LA and had to learn how to program. And then when I came back from that, I became a service tech.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's a real downgrade, getting to work in San Jose and then getting sent to LA.
Well, good thing the LA thing was only for a week.
Okay.
Yeah, it was only for a week, just for training. And then I went right back up to the Bay, and I was working there. And yeah, I spent 3 years in and out of San Francisco, servicing all the high rises, doing fire alarm programming and stuff, really learning how the business gets done on that end. And yeah, that taught me a lot. And then when we decided to move up to Oregon and transfer up to this office, and it took me a minute to get my bearings and get things right before I could do fire. But I'm very happy to do fire. It's one of the best things I love. I truly love the responsibility it carries.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I like more than just doing regular electrical. I like that. And there's a lot to learn. It's tied into everything, It goes into elevators, it goes into doors, it goes into access. I mean, it's cool. It's really cool.
No, yeah, that is what's really awesome about fire. And as you know, I do access control.
Yeah.
Is we get to tie in, integration, we get to tie into all these other systems,
right.
Same elevator and what was fire. We tie into each other constantly.
And I love to, the responsibility factor carries a lot where it's like, hey, if this doesn't work, you're not going home. You got to make it work.
Right.
Because it is life safety. And
absolutely.
A part of that is, and I have to remind myself of this from time to time, because you can get into working,
right?
And you're working every day, and it feels like it's just a normal job. And then you stop and you go, wait a minute, though, I'm doing something that is also bringing a service to the community I'm working in.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. I'm trying to keep people safe in the buildings that they go to work in every day, and that's important.
It's vital.
And,
yeah.
and I think that a lot of the fire guys that I work with have always carried that part of it. As in, like, we really care about making sure this stuff works properly, because it's not about us doing the job. It's about how the system functions in an emergency.
Right.
If there is to be one.
Yeah. And I mean, in the last 30 years, it's never been more, important, obviously, but just like scrutinized, very tedious, very, very nitpicked because of so many bad things that have happened in the past.
In particular,
and it should be.
In particular, I remember specifically there was one. It was in Oakland. I want to say, I'm gonna probably reference 2017 to maybe 19, somewhere in there, and it was called the Ghost Ship Fire. Okay. And it was a warehouse that did not have fire alarm, and it went up in blaze when people were in there, and I think they were having like a party and stuff. And so after that, and I'm not exactly sure if people died. I know people were injured for sure, but I don't know if anybody died per se.
If it's the same fire that I'm thinking of, I think people did.
I think they did too.
My tattoo artist came up from the Bay Area, and
I believe so. But the thing is that after that, I remember the fire marshals and everybody getting just more scrutinizing on how things are done. And so, and we really, I really noticed that when I would go do final inspections.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fire marshal we would go into a corner of the room, close the door, and they would bust out the dB meter and be like, oh, it's not loud enough. You need to add here and here and here and here. And we would have to make adjustments to the system.
Well, Oakland around that time had actually, I feel like a lot of fires, especially in it was a lot of abandoned areas, maybe would set on fire and it'd catch actually non-abandoned things.
Sure.
But no, I just remember, a few people that I've talked to, about that area, time era in Oakland was crazy.
Yeah. And it just goes to show that you just can't be too careful, because you don't know where the accidents could potentially happen. Right. So, and it's just, again, it's just that extra level of, hey, I'm also bringing something more to my job than I'm just going to work every day. I'm servicing the community that I live in too, which makes you feel kind of good, like you're doing something extra.
Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. It's, a huge pain in the ass for me a lot of the time, but it kind of goes with what you were kind of saying just right in the beginning, like the added responsibility.
Yeah.
Just kind of gives you the juice, you know? So I went into service because I kind of got bored with install.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with install. I
no,
mean,
not at all.
But
But
I'm very difficult.
Yeah,
but
I'm on the same boat with you.
ADHD.
Yep.
I was like, I need to work my brain. I need to fix problems.
Yes.
And I need to mentally tire myself out. So that's a kind of cool thing with, like fire paths and, there's like, hey, this is just how it needs to be.
Yeah.
And then me or, my team, we have to like figure out what will work there, especially in like retrofits.
Retrofits are tough.
Yeah, where we're not doing like a big install, so we don't have like the designers and all of that in there. And it becomes my responsibility with who my clients are, because we kind of have our own clients in service. And so the ones that I service, huge hospital chain, I work with the salesman to try to figure out like how we're going to do this. And I love it because.
So I love service. And one of the reasons I noticed I love service was because I love being able to show up, see the problem, diagnose it, fix it, and move on and get 2, 3, maybe 4 of those a day.
Yeah.
I loved that like task. It's just like get out there and go work. Install is a lot different because install, you have a job, you have hours, you have times, you have to get things done kind of in phases and settings. But then we get thrown at these installs, right? And we get 2, 3 days to do this install, and then go do these cells real quick, and then come back and go do these installs. And like you're going back and forth, and it's like, man, this is tough. It's tough to keep up sometimes.
I loved the big jobs.
Yeah, and big jobs are nice.
That's when I was like, I got to go to service, because going from like 4-month and longer jobs.
Yeah.
I loved that. Like it made me, it was just like, damn, I love what I do so much. Just like being able to, work with the other contractors and just like the daily challenge and everything. Yeah. Like I just loved it. And when you have that much time in a job, there's all the easy stuff that you can knock out and, have like, even some like, some team hangouts and stuff, when you're just killing stuff, you can kind of,
I mean, there's that thing, right? Like in the beginning of a job where you're like, you try to plan like, man, if we can get X, Y, and Z done by this time, we are kind of ahead of the game, or, and that's
how I always did it. Just haul ass until, you're like, we can coast from here on.
You get your infrastructure in, you get your backbone in for your wire pulling, you get your location set, and then you can just kind of take it easy and go do your thing. I mean, Tyler and I were doing this. We were doing a Bainfield pet store. Oh yeah, right, the pet hospital.
Right. Yep.
And so we had to work at night, and we were like, hey, we don't want to work too many nights, so we're just going to try to do so. Literally, it was me pulling wire and he was boxing and trimming devices. And so we kind of just split up the 2 tasks, and in 2 nights we pretty much had that whole building done.
Nice. And what was that, like it's supposed to be like a week job? Or
What's crazy is they put really a lot of hours on that job, which we thought was like, man, this kind of over exceeds what we would even quote for this kind of job. They put a lot of hours on here, so that's kind of nice. We don't normally see that. Yeah. And so we were like, no, but we could do this. I mean,
from what I've talked to you, you never see it.
Dude.
Never.
Well, when the sales guy's happy and he looks at you, he's like, yeah, we padded your hours. And we're like, you gave us less than half of the hours that we would normally ask for to do this job, and you think you padded us with hours.
Right.
That's way different. But then there's change orders,
was, night work, probably on lifts. Yep. So many companies underbid that stuff. Yeah. And then I guarantee you guys have done more than one with that client where were like, where are the hours? Yeah. So it was probably, I've seen that happen. Like a couple change orders from the job before get added to that one. So you're like, okay.
Or where you,
now we're going to get it back.
Where you might creep into the land of, hey, when you're on this job, clock into this job over here because you're like, oh, great. Now we're mixing that. But I mean, if that's what it takes to get them done right, I think the thing is, if we could just have an apprentice each,
oh yeah,
that alone just sets you apart, because not only you have somebody you're teaching, right? You're molding, you're shaping, you're teaching them the right ways to do things. You're giving them the opportunities to make mistakes so they can learn, because that's a huge part of what we do is making mistakes.
Right.
How many times have you drilled a hole in a wall and it came out somewhere you did not expect and you go, oh, oops.
Yeah. And I hope the mic isn't picking up my squeaky chair, but no, and that's, I think I really miss that about like I'll say 2021 is, I feel like we had more, which is, hold on, I'm just going to pause, which is so funny because there's never been more apprentices in Oregon, I think, ever.
Than right now?
Ever.
Really?
Like, post 1980, most apprentices in, I think, Oregon history. So I don't know where they are, but no, when it was easier to get jobs and we had a lot bigger jobs, we had a lot more apprentices. I miss that. I mean, I even being an apprentice and job skipping and just learning so much, and all our journeymen at my company loved teaching us.
See, that's a thing where I truly love that. I mean, I don't think there's anything more precious in this world that we can do than pass on information to other people, right? Because I mean, why let somebody struggle with something that you can show them, hey, you don't have to struggle with this. We've struggled for you. Here's the way to do it.
Right.
Or you go, no, I'm going to let you struggle on that. Because guess what? In this day and age, it's not like it was 30 years ago. We literally have a computer in our pocket. And if you have a question about how something's wired, if you have a question of how something should be wired, if you have a question of how something should work, you can take the device out of your pocket and get that answer.
Right.
And it didn't used to be like that. You used to have to go find manuals. You used to have to go read books to figure that stuff out, or ask the ones who knew.
Now I just Google the manual.
Exactly. And we all do it. I do it all the time.
I
look up cut sheets, cut sheets and data sheets all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you get a board that I've never seen in my entire life, and I'm like, what do you even do? Yeah. I see that, there used to be a power supply back at the head end that went to like this power supply.
Sure.
That is also hardwired. Has power. Yeah. And then, we've gotten past that, we're starting to phase all that out.
Yeah.
We don't need that huge, influx of current,
or the old school like zone panels.
Oh, dude, don't even get me started.
Yeah, bro.
I can't
barely
wait to
any
get
labeling.
rid of those.
Zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. That's all you
just
had.
Me splicing wires and then putting a 1320 back in the head end and being like, this now. Never should have done that. Hindsight's 2020. I don't blame anybody. But, but yeah, and then now Sally ports, are you familiar?
No.
So they're called a few things, essentially like a vestibule.
Okay. Yeah.
But basically it's read in, read out into one door into a room, and then the entrance exit into that room is also read in, read out.
Got it.
And they can't both unlock at the same time.
Oh, yeah, they have to be opposite.
Yeah, one won't unlock without the other one being closed. Vice versa, usually used in mental hospitals or like, I guess I'll name drop just so I don't have to, working at Apple, they have some of those like man traps,
or maybe like a police station or something somewhere where you need to have a door close before you get into another.
You need to be able to bring somebody in without the risk of someone on the other side escaping.
Yeah.
So, I was on a job. I've never seen this before because, we've never used these boards.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, we just we just do all that through programming.
Right.
But there was an actual board above the doors that was it wasn't an access control board, but it was like just made for man traps, like,
oh wow,
in between relays and stuff, got never seen it before in my life.
That's crazy.
And there was a couple other guys I think had been out there and couldn't figure it out or whatever. These guys were dealing with this issue for like over a year, where they'd badge into like the first door.
Sure.
And then they'd hear it lock, and then they'd have to wait like another 5 seconds or whatever, which doesn't sound like a big deal.
No, but when you're the one in there waiting, it kind of
but when exactly, you have clients, you have designers, you're like trying to like
they want to move
through, move through in a timely process. Another, I think it was like 7 seconds. 3 times a day. 200 and whatever, how many days. It's frustrating.
It adds up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was a huge pain for them. And the first thing I did was, okay, let me look at it, get like a little grip of it. Mm-hmm. Okay, I kind of see how it works, or how I think it works.
Sure, yeah.
And then was just like, okay, model number, Googled it.
Yep.
And I'd fixed this like over a year problem that multiple people had looked at, because I kind of got an understanding of it, Googled it, read through the dip switches and the actual switches. Right. And I was just like, this whole time. We didn't do the install, by the way.
Well, of course.
That goes without saying. One of those clients where, where like they, cheap. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into it. But anyways, it was the whole time. It had just like a one thing turned that added 5 seconds to the gap.
Oh yeah, and it's so
and
easy
all these engineers are like,
right.
I was a god for
right.
What?
How good does that feel? Oh, and it's so funny too, like that. So that's one of the reasons why I truly love doing service, and especially like after I got the EST certification for programming.
Right.
When I came back, all the guys I worked with, they were like, "Hey man, you don't know anything, but we're going to teach you, so it's okay."
Right.
And I'm like, "All right, cool, no worries." So then I got under the wings of a couple really good technicians, and I mean just absolutely stellar technicians, and guys that were dedicated enough to the job where, like, if I was, 8, 10, 12 hours on a job and I was struggling, dude, they would team viewer in, help me figure it out, get it done.
Team viewer, man.
But the greatest thing about it is like, it was always a learning point for me, right? It was always like, hey, let me team viewer in with you so you can see what I'm doing, and we can talk on the phone while I go through, because I'll explain, hey, this is what I was doing. I'm still not getting the result. And then, and EST is quite a complicated system as far as the programming goes.
Oh, yeah.
So going and doing these service calls, fixing map faults, updating stuff, there's a certain process for everything. And so just doing that over and over again, I just became so fluid with it that it was so nice to have that help,
Right.
And then it just became natural. I just knew what I was doing,
Yeah. In our field, not to cut you off,
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Oh, no,
little Kanye joke.
Got it.
So Edwards, EST, learned that it's the same thing. The E stands for Edwards.
That's
no
right.
big deal.
That's right.
Has been compared to Software House on our side.
Okay.
Because it is so expansive. Like
mm-hmm.
the amount of things that you can program in are insane. Every single bit of it is very has to be very exact, because their capabilities are unmatched. Yeah. There's things that you can do with these panels that you just can't do on other panels.
We were doing right before I left San Francisco, I was starting to get into where they were doing relocation messages in high rises. So it was like, when you have a fire on the 41st floor, an amp would turn on with a message that tells you to relocate to a different floor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all through the
just
rules.
Just in that one area.
That's all through the rules. No, through the whole building.
Oh, gotcha.
For the whole building. Yeah. And that's just through the rules of the program that allow you to, because the level of panel we're working with, it's not just specific to like correlations where you just have your inputs and outputs.
Right.
You're rule writing. You're writing the rules of the system, and you can make it do so many things. And that's why it was fun too when I went with one of our other techs to go do the EST4. Really? Yeah, that was a lot of fun because I kind of had already had my feet wet with the 3 and I knew how the rules worked and stuff. So going through the class on the 4 was kind of fun to see how they changed it and how they've kind of upgraded it, made it a little easier.
So crazy in depth.
It was cool. It was really cool. Haven't really gotten a chance to use it yet.
Right.
Because they're still new. They're still kind of getting it out there,
Right. And you'll remember half of it by the time we get there.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to go back and do some kind of tutorial or something, talk to other people. But, it's just one of those things. It's been awesome. It's been really cool to learn a cool experience. I didn't expect that either. Coming from just high voltage electrical, it was just, there was none of that. There was no programming. There was no, you're hardwiring. That's all you're doing. You're pulling a whip from here to there. You wire it in, and that's how it goes. But now it's like, no, you pull all your wire and you get all your devices installed and now you program it. Now you test it.
Oh,
and you
for
function
sure.
it.
Culture shock for sure, especially to go to an LEA, which for our non-Oregon listeners, I know you guys are out there. Yeah. There's actually a lot of you guys. LEA is you can work on life safety as a limited energy tech. And then LEB is non life safety. So pretty much with the LEB, you can work with anything but access control and fire.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And there's still even more too with the fire stuff too, because you got like NICET. NICET teaches you more in depth directly about fire.
Yeah.
But I find that the people that know the most are the people that have like actually done the most.
Oh, for sure. And especially, and I know this, getting into service is so trial by fire.
Oh my God.
I mean, I
could tell you some stories, man.
Dude, it's crazy. Like, I mean, you can get a group of like 15 guys and, and they're like, hey, we need a new service tech who wants to, raise their hand. Nobody raises their hand because every one of them have done it for a little while. And you just sometimes you just want to just.
You can go crazy. I remember, I think I spent probably 2 weeks at this hotel chasing a ground fault on a speaker system, and I mean, that alone will humble you real quick.
Oh yeah.
But
make a grown man cry.
Oh my God, dude. It make you want to throw some stuff. Make you want to go, oh my gosh. Why? You think, oh no, I got it. I forgot it. I got it for sure. And you go back to the panel, it's still there. You're like, what in the
pull into your house and take 10 minutes to yourself kind of day.
Oh yeah. But I truly love doing service. In fact, I actually asked to be in service and I kind of got told, oh no, we kind of need you in install. And I was just like, I'm kind of overdoing install. Yeah. I guess like for me, I'm just over install because it's very monotonous. It's very the same, monkey wire pulling kind of stuff. And it's not that I can't do it. It's not that I won't do it.
Oh yeah.
I would rather be in service because it's for me, it's a little more challenging mentally.
Yeah. When I moved into service, they were like, this is temporary. You're going to keep running jobs.
And then
you're doing good at running jobs. And that's exactly what happened. Our freaking numbers went up like, because you know how it works, there's 2-hour minimums and just like how billing works.
Yeah.
If you can get things done
in a timely manner,
it makes so much
same
more
day
money.
Same day fixes are incredible for the office.
Yeah.
And before I left California and moved up here, I used to have customers that would literally wait for me to be available to go service their panels.
Same thing right now.
Because because they've had other people come in and they had a worse experience. They had, they didn't have the same experience as they did with me. And that's not to put those people down.
No, service is hard. I mean,
service is hard.
It's one
but
thing.
When you get in and you build a good relationship with the customer.
That too. Yep.
Yeah. It makes a difference.
There's not. Some of the smartest guys I've ever met were install guys, and they could tell you the entire up and down of every single part of their entire system, the engineering, the processes. I mean, beautiful, knock it out super fast. I mean, incredible, very well paid techs.
Sure.
Can't reverse engineer it
right
when there's an issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not a diss
at
all.
It's like some people, right? Some people can go build a house. They can go build a house from the ground up. Some people can go into an existing house and redo it.
Yeah.
And those are two very different things. When you only know how to go from the ground up, how to build the infrastructure yourself and how to do that, that's one thing. When you know how to go into something that's already put together and you can take it apart and fix it and put it back together, that's a whole different skill set.
No, that's a great point, because I've met incredible carpenters. Like if you were building something, you want this guy on your team.
Yeah.
And then even they will say, like, it'll, him and another guy, and he'd be like, hey, so this like part of the foundation, this wood structural part is failing. What would you do? And they say something and it makes sense. And the other guy's like, no, that would do this, this, and this.
Right.
What would be better is to do this.
Sure.
And then, one of the best guys at what he does that you've ever met is just like, dude, I never would have thought about that.
Right.
It's just
it's a whole different way of thinking. Yeah. It's a completely different way.
And I wasn't the best installer. So I'm definitely not telling you guys like, yeah, I was the best.
That's
I
right.
was the best
you
foreman.
were the absolute
now
best.
I'm the best. No, it's just what I was interested in and what I like doing.
I can tell you what I think personally. And I think a big part of your success is your relationship with people.
Yeah, I've been told that.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And it shows. It shows. Obviously, it shows. It shows through the podcast. It shows through the business. It shows from install to service, right? Because I've learned too that one of the biggest things about service, again, is being able to have that relationship with the customer.
Right.
Because the customer in the service realm, they don't want you to be on site. They don't want you to be there, right? And if you're there, they want you there and gone as quickly as you can possibly be. But also, they want to understand what you're doing. They want to understand the steps you're taking. They want to understand what you fixed, what you haven't. They want the rundown of everything. So if you can articulate that to them, make them feel comfortable about their system, make them feel like they're not going to be in any kind of compromised position where they either have to be like for my business on fire watch, or if a fire marshal is going to come by and say, oh my God, this hasn't been fixed yet. Right. What's going on? So when you can mitigate those disasters for the customer, and you take all that brunt on you, they like you, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Then when you can articulate what you've done, how you're servicing their system, what you found, how you fixed it, they like you even more.
Yeah. Get along with the contacts.
Yes.
Get along with their,
and
facilities team.
And it's all done in a timely manner.
Right.
And they get the proper information even after you leave, where they call you and say, we're really having an issue because we cannot communicate well with your office.
Right.
So we call you directly.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, it's okay.
It's never happened.
It's fine. I will talk to my office and we'll get everything set up correctly.
No, and it provides so much value to both sides. I mean, our companies that we're working for, where they have a guy that they can rely on, when we're all human. Sure. Everyone's gonna drop a ball.
Oh yeah.
Here and there, and just when there's those layers, it's just, hey, me and you, Doug.
Yeah.
Love football.
Yep.
I mean, the key to a great team is depth.
Oh,
if you
100%.
one man out, one man in, if you lose your top linebacker and you have a guy that can just.
I was just gonna say, did you see what happened today?
I did.
That was probably one of the most gruesome things I've seen.
Oh, Hutchinson.
Yeah, bro. You talk about a top linebacker.
Oh my
right?
God. Yeah, and then
the Detroit Lions.
Next man up.
Yeah.
Next man up. And they continued to just put pressure.
They put it on them.
On the Cowboys' offensive line.
They did.
But no, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's one of those guys.
When they can see like, hey, I'm not getting what I need here. Right. And instead of feeling like, I think we should call this other company or, I don't think this is working for us. They can be like, hey, we have this great relationship with the guy that services us. Let's call him. Yeah. And, maybe he'll tell me like, hey, try this, try that. Sure. Or, hey, really sorry about that. Mm-hmm. I kind of have a feeling of what it might be. It might be this, might be that. Oh yeah. Let me, they're probably in a meeting. Let me get back to you. Yeah. And just not losing a customer on a bad day because they're having a bad day. Sure. And, they're like, oh, and then this, because we've all been there, know?
Yeah. And I mean, there's umpteen million reasons to say things, right? And then too, I always like to try to take the approach of, I'm not just going to do a whole POV thing, right? Like not everything's from my point of view.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So
great point.
You always got to kind of put the foot, in the other guy, you got to put your shoe on. It's like, hey man, what is this guy getting told? Yeah. Right. What is my manager getting told that I don't know? What is the conversation happening that I'm not aware of, or who talked to who that I don't know about? And sometimes you can put fires out by learning that information. Yeah. You can go, wait a minute, that's not correct. Let me correct you on the right thing. Or I wasn't aware of that information. And I'm the one here working on this. Now that I have this, I can move forward in a different direction. Yeah. So there's those things too. Which, I mean, it just speaks to how big our business is, but it also plays into the sports world as well. I love using the sport analogies for our jobs. Yeah. Because it just plays in so well. Yeah. Because again, like you said, next man up, right?
Next man up.
But it's also the coaching staff and the GM.
Extremely important.
They're extremely important to be able to pick the correct talent to be there as the backup, right? Yeah. Like, who's hiring the backup?
Your service coordinator is kind of the defensive coordinator.
They're pretty much, right? I would have to say.
It's all managers the offensive coordinator.
Right? I mean, as long as they're not Michael Scott. Nothing against Michael Scott.
Right.
No, he was a great manager.
In our area, you don't want to be like a real defensive strong. No. You're like, offense really isn't doing it. You thank God for our service.
Right? Well, it's like, what is it? Colin Cowherd always talks about a young quarterback with a defensive coach never works out. And he goes
Broncos.
He goes example after example after example of when an offensive coach gets a young quarterback. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Sean Payton, those offensive minded coaches have much better success with a young quarterback. Look at what Robert Saleh had to deal with in the Jets, and it just didn't work out, right?
I just got to say, the only coach I can think of that really nailed that would be Pete Carroll, defensive head coach with Russell Wilson.
He did.
For like 10 years.
How much do you put on the OC for that? Do you think that really played a heavy role?
Yeah, we're gonna take a sports tangent, and then we'll get back to because I do have something to say that we were talking about.
Yeah,
but I mean, we also had a absolute quarterback guru.
Yeah,
I mean, Gino. Mm-hmm. Where the hell did he come from? And where did that quarterback coach go to? He went to the Texans the year that they drafted C.J. Stroud,
and that kid is balling. He's balling.
He's
out.
Incredible. Yeah, I mean, not to overuse the word incredible, but he's amazing.
So
coaching has to go back to electricity. What you were saying.
Yeah,
coaching has is just so
it's
important.
vital. It's so vital. It's vital because, and I think too, when you have a coach or a journeyman, right, that you really trust, that you trust his experience, you trust what he says, especially you can see it in action, right? Like you see these guys and you just go, you know what you're telling me, I'm going to listen to because I trust what you're saying. When you get that, you get great workers. I think you get, and it, you know, a rising tide will raise all ships, right? So like when you have a little bit of success here and there, and everybody can kind of build off of that, it brings everybody up. But when you can trust what your manager is telling you as like, hey, I know that this is good for us, then it's easy to follow along with. When you can't trust what they're telling you, and again, you can see that play out, and you see it play out all over the place. When you get bad information, whether it's this guy's getting bad information from over here and he's giving that to me, and however that comes about, bad information is just never good. And then, you know, now you're kind of fighting an uphill battle. And I could see this with a lot of, again, sports teams. It happens all the time.
I mean, look at the Detroit Tigers. They made the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, incredible. Their cap space was less than 18 million.
That's low.
And I think they won one game, I think, in the first round.
Yeah.
And the guy that blew the game for them made more money than the Detroit Tigers, like full 9 guys or something like that. Like he made 18 million a year and they made like 17.8.
That's insane.
That's how important management and communication and just what could you say? Good chemistry. That is a group of guys.
Well, that's the baseball theory, right?
Perfect with each other.
That's the hardball theory of like finding the statistics to make people great, you know, in areas where you can see improvement, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the idea. It's like, hey, we need to get this guy. Why? He's a slub. He doesn't do this. Yeah, but he gets on base like over 40% of the time he's at the plate. Yeah, that's success. So you have one guy that is like almost 50% of getting on the base every time he's at the bat.
Yeah.
Like that's
just
analytics.
And just relationships.
But
that's
it's
how
also
important
But
relationships.
it's also trusting information too. It's also trusting the information you're given, right? To be the manager to say, no, we're going to get these guys instead of we're going to go find this high priced, you know, number 1 AA league.
Right.
Like this morning, I was feeling so bad not to go back to
go for it.
The Trevor Lawrence, like the kid, he's out there and he's a number 1 pick, you know, he hasn't won a damn thing. They've made it to the playoffs, but they haven't really won anything.
Right.
And I'm watching him throw dots all over the field and his receivers are dropping it. And you're just going,
and then who are they always talking about?
This is why
him.
This is why it's tough for young quarterbacks to go to bad teams.
Yeah.
And they're trying. I mean, Christian Kirk's not a slouch of a receiver.
No,
but they're dropping balls.
Yeah.
And I'm watching and I'm going, I feel bad for this kid. But then at the same time, I see him make mistakes too. And I'm just like, I don't put a lot of stock in the number one draft pick.
Right.
You know, especially when it's a quarterback. That is the hardest position to play on that field. I do think. And if you don't have the pieces around you, including the coaching, it's very difficult to be successful in that realm.
Yeah, you're lucky if you get one forever keeper per draft.
But these guys make so much
Jaden
money.
Daniels, my boy.
Yeah, dude, that guy.
My
my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That man.
Yeah. So,
but real quick.
Yep.
We can go back to that.
Yeah.
In a minute. But I just wanted to get, before I forget, I had completely forgotten about this Bud Light commercial.
Oh.
For forever.
Which one?
And I may have just forgotten about it again, actually. Talking about ADHD.
We both have it.
But, oh my God. It was, oh man. Well, this sucks.
Is it an old school one?
Oh, it's a really, really old one.
The frogs? The horse? Which one?
What were we talking about? We were talking about, Well, I can't remember. So
that's all right. It's out there somewhere.
We'll just have
you'll remember it someday.
Oh,
sure.
yeah. No, as soon as I walk out this door, I will
like,
remember.
Oh my gosh, it hit me.
But I mean, I guess essentially what I wanted to go back to was, just the client, the client conversation, and being able to. Oh my God, this is going to eat me up.
Giving one of my favorite things has been when I'll ask a customer, I'll be like, hey, did you guys ever get any kind of training on your system? Or do you guys feel comfortable with your system? And most of the time it's no, honestly, most of the time it's a no. And so what I love to do is just give them a lot
of the time there's no time for them to do that.
And that's true. Yeah. But I love if I get the opportunity to just give a basic, like, hey, this is the panel, right? This is when this happens, push this button. When this happens, you guys can do all of these functions. They're readily available to you right away. So you don't have to, because a lot of the times, and this goes for a lot of service calls,
right?
Especially in hotels, there'll always be, hey, our panel's going off and it's really annoying the receptionist. Because there's always an annunciator that's right next to the receptionist.
Just killing the poor gal.
It's a battery trouble. It's a battery trouble. And it just, they hit silence and it just keeps coming. And it's just annoying them and they just can't take it, right?
Right.
And that's what we deal with a lot. But then I like to go through with them a lot and be like, oh, well, do you guys know, if you push silence here and it stays dormant for this long and, and we try to, of course, some problems are obviously more difficult and in depth to fix and whatnot, but it's always nice to get that relationship with the customer where it's like you're going in there and you're giving them this experience of somebody that's experienced in their system and trained to know like, this is how you deal with this. And then they feel comfortable with you, right? And then that's why they don't want you to leave or they don't want you to not be the one to come back when there's another problem because they're like, oh, I feel comfortable with this guy working on my system.
Yeah. And there's no better feeling than going on vacation and then coming back and you're like, whew, my schedule's full. That's not the part I'm saying is great. But being like, man, what happened when I was gone? And they're like,
nobody wanted anybody else.
They were like, they were like, when's he get back? Next week? We can wait.
Yep.
That is the best feeling.
Love that. I love that a lot.
Nothing beats it.
Yeah. No, it's true. Well, I
my
tell
boss
you what,
can give me all the compliments in the world and nothing's going to beat that.
I will tell you what, I do agree with that to a point. The only other point I will say beats it was there was one particular time, it hasn't happened much, but there was one time where I was in, I think it was Adobe. I was working in Adobe in San Jose. And we were just in the break room where we were just testing the system, just testing. And this lady that works in the building just came through and she just thanked us for doing what we were doing. She asked, what are you guys doing? I was like, oh, we're just testing the fire system, make sure it works. And she was just like, well, thank you. And it's like that, even as small as it was, just a simple thank you meant the world to me. Because again, going back to we're doing something for the community that we live in. Right, where we're protecting the building,
something
for people
important
to be safe.
Doing,
and somebody noticed, somebody that she's not paying for the system, she's not paying for our service.
That's why she's so nice.
She's in the building,
I'm just kidding.
right?
Just kidding.
Right? She wasn't looking at the bill. No, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
she was
for sure.
She was just in the building, and she just thanked us for doing.
Had nothing to do with what
nothing to do
her
with
job is and what she's dealing with.
And I've been on the other side of that.
Yes,
where I was in an apartment complex in San Francisco. And I had the horn strobes going off.
Oh, Lord.
Because I didn't know what was miswired. So it was going off, right? And it's going off and it won't stop. It won't stop. I had something completely backwards wired and I was like, I didn't know where I was going wrong with it. And so this lady comes in because they had been having random false alarms for a while, right? So, she was just so upset. And this older lady, and she comes in all, do you even know what you're doing? Do you even know how to do this? Just really. And I mean, bless her heart, she was right. She was right to be mad at me. It was going off for a while. I had to figure out how to fix it first. Right. So I've been on the other side of that coin, and you kind of have to be when you're in service. There's no telling. I mean, you could set a fire alarm system off, and sometimes people do it all the time. They forget to put it in test.
You're the supervillain and the superhero.
Oh yeah, easily. You forget to put a system in test, and then you test something, and the fire department shows up.
Ooh,
that's a fun one. That's a fun one.
That's tough.
Yeah,
that's pretty tough.
I always like to wait outside and like look at my watch and be like, "You guys are late." They don't appreciate that much.
That reminds me. I'll never forget.
They don't appreciate that at all.
It was an after-hours call. I had just journeyed out, and they were like, "Yeah, our front door to our building's unlocked. Anyone that can grab the handle can walk right in." Right?
Well, that's not good.
No, it's not good. And so I went there, and it was just a really old system.
Mm-hmm.
And then just right off the bat, I knew this is not going to be an easy call because I'm looking at the panel and I'm looking at all this.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks good over here, which means it's going to be effed somewhere else.
Oh, yeah.
And they left out a huge detail, which is the building.
Shocking.
The building was armed.
Oh.
So I see two, suburban type, it was a while ago. So, but suburban type deputies show up.
Sure.
And they're walking up to the door, and I'm just like, obviously the best thing to do is to just walk like nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
Out the door and wave.
Yeah.
So I walk out the door. I'm like, "Hey guys, you're probably here for me.
Yeah.
I'm working on this system. The front door is just completely unlocked. Nobody's here. You can try it right now. Just go pull the door open. I'm here on an emergency call." They didn't tell me that the building was armed. So
as soon as you walk out that door,
that's immediately I waved and was just like, "Hey, you guys are here for me."
Yeah.
Non-threatening, just like, because I mean, they're obviously they're people too.
Sure.
Just be a person. And they're like,
right.
"Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So, I explained the situation. They walked up, opened the door, walked in, looked inside, made sure like nobody was just sitting in there like,
right.
"Oh my God, they got your issue."
Right. You were harboring hostages in the back
exactly.
somewhere.
Like, no worries. And they just took off. No, they didn't obviously take me for my word. They were good men of the law.
Right.
And small details like that.
Yeah, that's
pretty
really
important.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was there for like another hour and a half. It sucked. There was like a remote panel that wasn't in the prints that.
I love that.
It was above hard lib.
Wait.
Funny enough,
you actually get prints?
More than you do. More than you do. Yeah.
That's hilarious. No, it's so true.
Labels too.
Oh my God, labeling. Labeling is so crucial sometimes.
At least on your system, I think on your systems, you can, like, if you know the codes, you can kind of go scroll through the zones and see what the zones are labeled.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
Yeah.
Like, so if they're
not,
you
need wiring.
If they're not labeled,
yeah.
I'm talking like unplugging readers to see which reader gets unplugged.
Well, so that rolls into like what I was talking about earlier, whereas you go from like an installer to service, right? And you're like, you need to do install, because the biggest thing when I started doing install was take it apart, go to the panel and see what the panel says. Go back, put it back together, go back to the panel and see what the panel says, right? Like, do these things, because that's how you know how you're doing something correctly or incorrectly, or if you're even working on the right thing.
Yeah.
Simple things. Throw a toner on the wire, right?
Yeah.
Well, you get bleed over.
It freaking sucks.
You get bleed over, right?
You got to do it sometimes.
So if you think you're on the correct wire, you short it out. And if the tone goes away, you're on the correct wire.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's certain things that you got to learn, tricks of the trade to tone
goes
stuff
to continuity.
out, right? So you're like, but if you don't practice those things, if you don't get in the habit of doing those things, and you just become a service tech, good luck, buddy. I'm sorry. It's like, we're sorry.
Yeah, we're sorry.
We're sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry from my mansion, from my mansion in Colorado. I'm sorry. But seriously, though, I mean, those are crucial things to our job, you know? So I do want to ask you, though.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that you and I have really talked about this yet. I talked about it with Tyler a bit, but how was your experience when you got to go to Milwaukee?
Man, I mean, obviously for anyone, it was unbelievable, but just it wasn't even like how well they treated us, you know, how nice the hotel was that we were staying in.
Yeah.
You know, the meals that we had and everything, how they all made us feel.
Yeah.
Just the culture there is, I mean, the Detroit Tigers must have took a trip up to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, it's like just seeing everyone interact with each other. It's like a feeling like no other. Impossible is a word that I might use, you know?
Okay.
Just like in a movie where just everyone's just really happy. It just was genuinely and everyone you talk to has been there for like at least 8 years. They love working there. They are more excited for us to be there, believe it or not, than we are to be there. And we are all obviously extremely excited to be there. But they're like, look at what we did for you, you know, kind of, but without like the look at what we did.
Sure.
For you, you know, like it was just like we sent guys to your job sites the last couple years, spent weeks on job sites, not even interacting with you, just watching everything that you do. Yeah. Seeing, hey, that looks pretty inconvenient. Oh, this guy's doing that same thing. How can we mitigate that? And just their ingenuity and just what they've brought back there and their excitement to show us, like people putting in like the concrete nails, you know, the double-headed nails. Yeah. Like they spent weeks on a job site just watching these guys bow into concrete all day, setting it down. And they were like, damn, they have to pick that thing up, you know, 50 times a day. Right. Why don't we engineer it to where it has the whole top of it's flat. So when they set it down, it sits up. So that's, you know, 4 or 5 inches that they don't have to bend over 50 more times a day. Sure. So, I mean, thousands and thousands of times a year of less torque on the back and, you know, less work. And it's stuff like that, you know?
And does that get appreciated enough in our field with the tools that we work with?
I would say definitely with people who have the Milwaukee tools and see it. Yeah. And and some guys who don't. And there's nothing wrong with having other tools. Sure. I mean, I had DeWalt for forever.
It's a reputable company.
Absolutely nothing wrong with it.
No.
But it's just those tiny things that set
that's what's gotten
apart.
You like to switch more to Milwaukee, is just that knowing that they take the time and ingenuity to look at the technician as more than just somebody that's going to use our tools. We're going to gear our tools to help the technician be better at their job.
Yeah, and I mean,
and that's that's fantastic. Look, I mean, that is just fantastic.
Look at your relationship with your tools, and your relationship with your significant other. Like, you know, you can provide for them. You know, you can be dependable, honest, all of these things. Right. Just a rock. You know. But it's the little things. Yeah. That
it's like, are you doing those little things that show them each moment that it matters? Right. Right. You know? And each thing that you're taking the time to do is worth it to them.
Yeah. So maybe they're maybe insignificant little things like
sure.
right here. But again, it's just like going back to that huge battery powered nail gun.
Oh my God.
It's battery powered, by the way. Like just that little thing, just
Yeah.
4 inches, 50 times a day. Cause you know what they say, our back, it just goes back to math,
Yep.
the weight that we stand back up with that at the focal point in our lower back is 4 times the weight that it's lifting. So if our upper body's 100 pounds, there's 400 pounds of pressure on your lower back.
Oh my gosh.
So again, 4 inches, 50 times a day times 200 and something. That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And they spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and just even travel, and then engineering all that. So it's, like I said, there like ton of great tool brands out there, and that's the reason why I'm such a big Milwaukee fan. It's
it totally makes sense. I totally get that, and I really wanted to just hear your perspective on that because I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
I love who you are. I
Right.
love what you do. You're a great technician, and it's awesome to talk to somebody that's done something like that, because the coolest thing to me was you guys didn't go there because the company said, hey, we're going to send you guys to Milwaukee.
Right. Yeah.
You guys went there
Right.
because your podcast is so awesome
Right.
that you piqued the interest of them and they invited you out. And that is just incredibly cool. To me, it means a lot because, I have my other ventures outside of work.
Right. Oh yeah. Incredible drummer,
I
ladies
play
and
the
gentlemen.
music. Thank you. I'm mediocre at best, but
Yeah.
no,
his
try.
huge, beautiful burnt orange pearl drum set
it.
says otherwise.
I love it so much. But if I got invited to Pearl, right? To go talk to the people at Pearl and see what new innovative thing they were doing. Because like back then, okay, so that drum set in particular, right? Just to get on a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah, go for it.
But one of the main things that drew me to that drum set was that the way that the drums mount, right? So back in the day, the drums would have a mount built into the side of the drum. And I didn't think about this until I researched this drum. And so now what they started doing at this point was they were using clips, and they clip the mount to the rim of the drum. So the drum itself gets full vibration.
Right.
So you get a better sound out of your drums.
Right.
They're a little bit louder. They project a little better. When you have the arm go through the side of the drum, it's more solid.
Yeah.
So there's not as much vibration going on. It's a little deader of a tone.
Yeah, a lot deader.
Yeah.
More
and
aggressive.
so
yeah.
that's one of the things that really drew me to this brand. And this was early 2000s-ish. So this was a new technology they were coming out with drumming wise. Now they have all kinds of new crazy things.
Right.
All kinds of new crazy things. Technology is insane. And it's the coolest thing too. But like, I just appreciated that so much because it gave a warm richness to the drum, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's such a great idea. And again, going back to the tool thing, right? Like when we went from these big heavy batteries that would shovel into the bottom of the drill, and now you just have a slight little clip and boom, you have this skinny little lithium ion battery that lasts forever, and you can just boop, 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 boop all you want, and it's great, and it's lightweight, so you can carry it around.
Milwaukee's new impact wrench,
drilling over your head.
12-volt impact wrench, 550 pounds of torque.
Dang.
In a 12-volt, dude.
Dang.
In a 12-volt.
That's
no one
awesome.
asked them to do that.
They did.
People were like,
Milwaukee did.
People got the 12-volt that was the previous version that was 250 pounds, and they were like, this is incredible what they just did with a 12-volt. And then I think it was like, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like 2 years later, Milwaukee was like, thought that was cool.
We'll just up that a little bit.
You thought that was the shit?
That was the thing. Now this is right here.
We're not going to stop. We're not going to stop spending money on, research for nobody,
Well, that's wonderful. And they are a great company. And just hearing the experience that you've had and hearing from Tyler, and then listening to the show and listening to Mike and you guys talk about it. I mean, it seemed like it was just such a good experience. You guys learned so much. And Milwaukee's definitely a wonderful company.
Shit, not to cut you off. I just remember, dude, the whole thing is, here's what we've done.
Yeah.
Check it out, guys.
That's right.
Pretty badass, right?
Yeah.
the entire time. This is a celebration, by the way. It's learn on this one day, celebrating the rest of the time.
Mm-hmm.
The entire time, they're like, hey, what do you like? What do you use from us the most? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What could be better?
Oh.
We're celebrating. We're celebrating how much they've jumped ahead this year.
Yeah.
And they're still like, what did you not like about it?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like
that's incredible.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of feedback you need to spur the change and the difference you want to see, right?
It's like a top 5. They're like a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
Who just like threw for 400 yards, and he's like, yeah,
but I missed that open pass right there.
But I missed a cut. I missed Jamar Chase deep, and that's something I need to work on. It's just like that incredible mentality. I mean, throughout the whole company, it's the culture.
I know it's a smaller scale, but I try to take that in, especially like with the band I'm playing with. I take every opportunity I can to figure out where I'm not the best and where I could be better. And one of the most eye-opening ones was we were playing and somebody was recording from, the audience, and then getting to see that, right? So getting to watch the band from the audience perspective and going, oh my God, I'm hitting my cymbals too hard. I'm making too much noise that is overshadowing the rest of the band. I need to really rein that in.
Right.
And as an internal perspective, turning around and then applying it. And at the next gig,
I'm hitting breakdown pressure instead of chorus pressure.
Right. But then at the same time, being able to play the whole show that way.
Yeah.
Because we're a 4-piece band and we have a small setup, and I don't want to overpower anybody else.
No.
And so hearing that perspective from the audience was so good for me.
Yeah.
Was so good for me just to make that little internal tweak and just say, you know what? I need to rein it in and bring it down, because now the next show, when we get those recordings, they're going to sound so much better. And I'm talking a recording from a dang iPhone.
Yeah.
Just in the audience.
Yeah.
And we're throwing them on social media because they sound so good.
And a lot of people need to be able to take feedback and critiques. It's become a real problem.
It really has.
Now.
It really has.
Where it's just like
people are just too sensitive.
Dude, even if somebody comes across poorly to you and you don't like how they came across.
Oh yeah. Tone policing is huge.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's just like, I mean, it's not empathy, but like, just like being able to like see yourself in other people's shoes.
Yeah. Well, when you,
like,
I think when you take back the perspective of like, you're in your own head and you're doing your thing, and you're not noticing other people's perspective on you.
Yeah.
Right. When you jump back though, when you jump back and you go, you know what, let me take a step out of myself and let me see what other people's perspective is, what's going on, what are they saying? Like, how can I be better in that way? It's so important. You can improve so much just given the understanding. We take for granted every day these interactions that we have with people because we have so many, right? Yeah. Especially in our industry. We have so many interactions with people day in and day out, and they have so many interactions with different people day in and day out. Like, how often do we stop and go, wait a minute, maybe I didn't express this correctly. Maybe I could have said this a little better. Maybe I didn't take into consideration what this person had just come from a meeting, and I bombarded them with this thing, and then they're all confused about what's going on, right? Like,
pride battles perspective.
Oh, huge. Huge.
Because I mean, if I never, just dropped my pride and just been like, this guy isn't attacking me.
Right.
I want to be the best I can be.
Yep.
So, and it even got to the point where, I'm not going to lay down for somebody who's being like, an asshole or whatever. Just,
right.
But even when people, and I think I've said this on the show before, when people are like really angry and, they're not being respectful, that's where pride and perspective, I feel like it's a sliding scale, and there is a perfect medium
because you
somewhere.
lose your perspective when your pride takes over. You completely lose perspective.
So I got to a point where I was just like, well, this guy, maybe he's not as good at communicating, but he is so fed up with this little thing that I'm doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to shut my mouth and I'm going to listen to him. And I'm going to let him get it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to come up to him later and be like, yeah, what the,
Yeah.
And,
well, there has to be
most
conversation.
of the time, if you just let them kind of get there,
Yeah.
they'll be like, hey, I really respect, you taking that. I was completely out of line. I should have said something sooner, but hey, this really bothers me. And if you did this, it would, it'd be great. And it's a learning moment for both of you. And just letting somebody get out their frustrations and knowing, oh man, you know what? This guy, and who stood his ground later, came up to me, there's the trust that you build with that person,
So,
knowing that like, hey, now I know that I'll have his back next time, and I know he'll have mine, right? Because he ate it. Ate my emotions for me, or whatever the way to say that is. You touched on it.
It's the trust that you can build. One of the main things that I love to do on a job site, especially because I don't think it's thought about enough by technicians. When I'm working with you, if it's just you and me on the job, right?
Yeah.
I'm not there to just work. I'm also there because if something happens to you and I'm working with you, I want to be able to take care of you in that way if you need to, right? Like at any moment, because I've been in that situation where I was on a job, I was working security, and I had something going on with me and I didn't know what was going on, and I felt really sick. I went into my manager's office, all of a sudden I passed out. And I woke up. Dang. I woke up with the EMT next to me, and I went and spent 4 days in the hospital after that.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to say is it's like at any moment, something bad can happen that is beyond our control and beyond. And so to have the trust that like you can trust me that if something bad happens to you, that I'm going to be able to do the things necessary to help take care of you in the moment and make things right towards the end. Like that's a trust that you have to build on a job site, especially. And I love to build that with whoever I'm working with. That's why I always try to be first open and honest.
Yeah.
If there's any criticism, please don't hesitate.
Yeah, I was going to say, because on like a way less scale, it's just like, I want to be able, like people want to be able to just be able to tell you what they think.
Yes.
Without having a bunch of bullshit drama in the workplace.
And there shouldn't be.
I should be able to tell you what you're doing wrong without it ruining my week and having to deal with you for a
week. That is one of the best things I did when I moved up here, especially with like one of the number one techs here in the office, is that I set a precedent with him that if there's ever anything that you go behind me, I was at that job before you, and you go behind me and you find something I did wrong, call me, tell me about it, tell me what I did. I'll tell you what I did. We can work it out and we can talk about it. And I guarantee you, I will do my best to never let that happen again. But it's a very good learning experience for me to move forward.
I was going to say for both of you.
And this built so much trust between us that I feel like I have a lot of trust from him, and I give him a lot of trust because I respect his perspective and I respect his ability and I respect his knowledge. So I call and ask questions. I like to do that. I like to call and ask questions before I do things because I like to know that I'm doing the right thing. But also when I don't do the right thing, I want to hear about it.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about whether I'm going to get fired, or I'm not worried about,
no. Exactly.
What I'm worried about is I don't want to make that mistake on the next job. I want to be better every time I go to a job. So if you find something I did wrong, or if you find that if you work on an install job with me and you see something that I could do better, please stop and tell me that moment.
Yeah.
Because if I'm irritated or something and I just need a minute to cool off or whatever, fine. But I will take that information.
And there's probably a really good chance I did that on accident.
Sure. 100%. And honestly,
going between 3 jobs, 4 jobs.
And then the best thing too is to be able to turn around and say, well, when I did that, this is what I was thinking. And this is the information I got told. And then usually they go, oh, well, I totally see why you did that then.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not how that's done.
I thought for sure I was going to be able to come back to this.
Yeah.
It's a learning moment for me.
Yeah.
Maybe this is going to go on my list, even though it's a little something insignificant.
Yeah.
It should go on my list anyways,
right,
for my PM or even just for myself.
I don't think there's a shortage of information you can take on yourself to become better.
Right. And just to clarify, we're not saying like you cover for me, I'll cover. No, like if you're a really bad tech and you're like, why did you, like, well, have some ownership.
But we know as being techs that's going to come out.
Yeah, there's going to be a few things here and there.
If you're a bad tech and you don't do the things to change, or you're not open to getting new information, you're going to continue to be a bad tech. So therefore, it's not up to me to just let you know that you're a bad tech. You're gonna be found out. Like it's not going to be hidden very well.
For sure. The first thing I thought of was, actually, come to think of it, the guys that have a really hard time taking criticism are also the first guys to point out your mistakes on a job site,
100%.
Not to you,
right,
but to your boss or their boss.
Of course, there's always those. But
usually it goes hand in hand. I just kind of made that connection.
Yeah, it does. It's so true. And for me, I'm not one to always want to point out something to the management. Like I don't feel like that's kind of my place. I feel like, if somebody's not doing something right on the job, there's time on the job to correct it.
Right.
Right. You can say, hey man, this is not how we do these things.
Yeah. Teach
this is, and then it gets to a point, if it gets bad enough, which I've had guys where we brought guys in.
Pattern that's different.
Guys brought in, oh yeah, I've been an electrician for 11 years and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So then why did you put more than 360 degrees of bends in that conduit run?
Right.
Because I can't pull wire through that. Now you need to go fix it. Or you need to figure out how to pull the wire through.
Yeah, yours does, in a lot of cases, not mean anything.
Yeah, no.
Now, I'm not going to say most cases, but in a lot of cases, I've seen a lot of guys be like,
sure,
I had 12 years of experience.
Wonderful.
And I'm like, dog, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And I know a lot of people that, the whole fake it to make it thing. Oh, I'm going to fake it to get the job. I'm going to fake it to make it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Well, that'll work. In our industry, that only works for so long. Because eventually you come to a point where your skills have to match what you've said. And when your skills don't match what you've said, it's super noticeable.
Yeah. And I've definitely worked with a few of those, like fake it till you make it guys.
Yeah.
And I'll never say anything.
Yeah.
As long as they're like paying attention and they're learning.
Sure.
And they're repeating. And, like, bro, your secret's safe with me. You know what? Because eventually you are going to be, a gem to have around.
Yeah.
I'm going to need you one of these
because they're
days.
Finally in a place where they're getting some good information from somebody who's giving them the right way.
Because there's a lot of companies where these guys are
they just get shuffled in,
dude.
They just get shuffled in.
They have 3 or 4 years and they don't teach them anything.
Yeah.
And then these guys have families. These guys,
all they know how to do is stand by the wire box and feed the wire.
Exactly. And I'm like,
you've never got on a lift and pulled wire.
Bro, if you're trying, I got your back.
that is the best. We're going to learn this
together.
That's the best thing you can do in our industry is just try. That's the best thing you can do. I mean, it's so true. It's so true. But then, you also have to figure out like, what are you good at?
Yeah.
What are you good at? I didn't realize it for the longest time. I'm pretty good at running conduit. I'm pretty good at bending conduit. I'm pretty good at running conduit. I'm good at running conduit in ways that it doesn't stick out, where you can kind of hide it. You can kind of try to go with the flow of the curves of the building and try to be,
make it look like you didn't add one,
Right. Like you're like, what you're doing.
Don't
tell anybody. I don't know what I'm doing, but yeah.
It is an art form. Oh my God.
No, bending conduit is an art form, and it can become a great art form. I mean, I've seen some of these electrical rooms and these panels where they've got, 10, 12 different conduits coming out of each panel, and they all go up and they 90 all offset from each other, and they look like a beautiful sweeping, and you're just like, man, that's beautiful.
I've even walked into a room with a client and then just been like, wow, would you look at that? Like, to the client, just like, we didn't even do it, you know? And just be like,
and just appreciate,
look how incredible that is.
Because you understand what it takes to do that.
Right.
The measuring, the bending, the time, everything. It takes a lot of time to figure all that out. And guys that can do it really fast are just amazing at it. And it's a thing to watch. I had a guy, his name was Felipe, and we were working in a Ruth Chris in Fresno.
Okay.
And
it must have been because I was like, I've never heard of this company, but you said it confidently. Yeah. So I was
Ruth
like,
Chris,
it's a steakhouse. They must mean something.
It's a steakhouse.
Yeah.
Ruth Chris Steakhouse.
Okay.
It's a high-end steakhouse too.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So we're working, and
I can tell because steakhouse wasn't in the name.
Right. Well, he was working around the bar.
Yeah.
And it was like a kind of a curved bar. And I watched him. He literally just bent a piece of pipe. Now, I don't know if he measured it before I got there, but I watched him bend this piece of pipe, and then he just shoves it through the holes of the studs, and it just goes through. And I was just like,
what the?
Dude, how? And he's like, man, that's just experience. Now,
that's experience meets genius.
He could be blowing smoke. He could be blowing smoke. No. But at the same time, these guys I worked with, they were really good. And they were in 20, 30 years by that time, right? Yeah. They've been doing it a long time. So you expect that. But it was an awesome thing to see.
Oh, for sure. No, that definitely is experience.
Yeah.
That's definitely not what I was going to argue. But I was like, that's experience and genius.
Oh, yeah.
At the same time.
These guys were incredible. And to learn from that, though, was awesome. And especially to have that come back at you. Like, I just remember just doing something simple offset somewhere. And it was in the back of the building. Nobody barely would even go in there. But the foreman came, and it was just like, man, that looks really good. And that, to me, I was like, okay, I take pride in that, because I got one of the highest compliments. The foreman came and said my pipe work looked good,
Yeah,
and I was an apprentice at the time.
It's pretty rare.
Yeah. So
usually
it's
they're like, they look at your stuff and they're like,
do that again.
Like are like literally incredible. I have like 10 panels, like 6, 7 power supplies. 3 huge cans full of boards.
Sure.
Everything's perfectly. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And he's like, the front door is supposed to be done by tomorrow. Like, you're like, so yeah.
You're like, yeah. But I took all this time and effort to do this. Isn't it glorious?
And then afterwards, after the job's coming to a close, they're like, God, your guys' stuff looks great.
Looks amazing.
We'd like to see you guys on the next one here in a couple months.
Well,
put in a bid for that.
I got one of the best compliments though, because we were doing this theater in Portland, and there was electricians on site, and we were expected to run everything, tucked away, cut-ins and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, there was no access. And so I told the manager at the time, I was like, I'm going to have to do this on surface mount. I'm going to have to.
Right.
And he's like, okay. And I did. And the customer emailed the branch and said, my conduit worked looked better than the electricians on site.
Dang.
And that's not heard of, because typically low volt guys don't do conduit work.
No.
Like typically, And
There's very few guys that I know.
And we're talking so I had to come down.
It's usually outsourced.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I had to come down and bend around a couple things. And then I had to run across this wall. And I had these whips that came up for devices in the middle of these channels, and I used the lines of the building.
The high volt guys, real quick, the high volt guys listening are going to be like, yeah, because he was an inside guy before he was a low volt.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
Which is totally true, but it's a great skill that I'm able to use. And it was, I'm so
and you're on
happy.
My team now. So.
And I'm on your team. But I'm so happy that I have that skill.
I'm so sorry I cut you off. You were talking about like going along.
Yeah, it was a simple thing, but just using the lines of the building and being able to tuck your conduit away like that just makes it so much better for the aesthetics.
Oh yeah,
right. And that's what the customer appreciates.
Important.
That's what the customer appreciates.
And again,
right?
That's like what I was talking about earlier. Little things.
Yeah.
Like I walked in and I saw a plan where like the cameras in a hallway were all on like the far left and far right ceiling tiles, like looking like crossed and all this other stuff.
Sure.
On a hard lid.
Ooh.
So it's not drop tile where that would actually look much better.
Sure.
But on a hard lid where like it's all one piece.
Yeah.
Everything needs to or is going to look. And I just looked at it and I was like, you guys aren't going to like this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is after the project has started. And luckily, you know, we had some time. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, look, there's where the lights are.
Yeah.
We can absolutely restructure where these are all going to where we're not going to hit lights or lights aren't going to affect images.
Yeah.
And I completely like flipped it around and I was like, and they're going to go in line with, you know, the sprinklers and the
sure.
alarms and everything else. And I was like, you're going to be way happier with this. I promise you.
Is that an engineering thing where like you're now taking the perspective from the technician, but you're going at an engineering level and saying, hey, wait a minute, we need to redesign this because as a technician, I've had this happen many times and I know the problems that it's going to cause.
Great question. Thank you for asking it.
Of course.
No. 100% aesthetics based, based on the customer.
Okay.
Very, very high end customer. It was, I don't want to say the exact company.
Sure.
But you're like, we're talking like an Apple or a Nike or a Columbia, like where aesthetics is their whole brand.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah,
so like every single thing in there needs to be perfect. It wasn't Nike. Everything in there needs to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I knew for a fact the designer that signed off on it was going to come back and say, I don't like that.
Oh,
and I knew the client was going to be like, they just stick out so much.
Yeah.
So I was just a little thing where I was just like, this is going to take basically no effort, couple hours on my part down this huge hallway, and we're all going to be happy. And it looked incredible at the end.
See, that's one of the things I
set up lasers with the sprinklers. And I was just like, I went off of them. And
that's fantastic. That's one of the things I find myself doing these installs is going through and kind of almost re-engineering, because like looking at plans, looking at lines on paper, you go, oh yeah, you just pull the wire from here to there. Sure, yeah, it's all great. And then you get on site and you go, well, wait a minute, this is hard lid, that's T-grid, that's a concrete wall, that's a brick wall, that's a wood wall, that's, you know, there's all, you know, you
thanks
have
for the base, the idea. I'm gonna have to work with this a little bit.
Reimagine this real quick. And then also you get into like, okay, what's the most efficient way I can start doing this job and get it done in the timely manner that I need to get it done? And how can I do it, especially, you know, more so solo, right? Because when you're solo, like pulling wire solo takes 3 times longer than it takes with 2 people.
Oh, for sure.
And it's crazy. That concept is just insane.
It's lost on so many managers.
Oh my God, dude.
They're like 2 people, twice as many hours being spent. And I'm like, no. Dude, if you have, just like you said, it's probably close to that.
Yeah.
2.5 to 3 times faster,
100%.
Depending on the situation. Like, especially if you're like ladder skipping, you're practically handing a glow rod to the next guy. Who's, I mean,
so
much faster.
And so like when you have to do it solo, right? There's a couple ways you can go about it. You set up at your spot, get all your wire you need to pull, right? And then you go, if you have a drop tile, you go drop a few tiles. And then you just, with your glow rods, you try to hit your open tile and you try to, right? That doesn't always work. Sometimes the wire gets caught at the box. Sometimes the wire gets caught in the ceiling. Yeah. Sometimes you pull out a bunch of slack.
Just can't skip it up into that next hook.
Right? Or you got to pull a bunch of slack in a corner.
Right.
And then it all gets looped on itself. And then you try to pull it up in the ceiling. You have to go back and fix it. Yeah. And then so there's many things that can happen. Whereas if you have a second guy, That guy can be at the box to make sure it doesn't get caught up. He can be at the corner to make sure it doesn't get all twisted. Side,
I'm pulling. Then you can look down, see that it's coiling right now. Now you can hop down and you start smoothing it through. Maybe it's 4 times faster.
Or maybe, just maybe, the guy spotting catches you pulling wire around a pipe that you didn't see.
Right.
And you go, you're going to need to pull that back and fix that. And you go, oh,
wow.
Dang it.
That just saved me an hour.
Yes.
If not way worse.
Or, because if you're by yourself and that ends up happening and you go, I just pulled all that wire and I went around this pipe and it's visible now.
Yeah, you get to the end of the hallway.
It's like it's all tucked away up high and then it comes down underneath one pipe and then it goes back up and you're like, oh no.
You walk back over there and you're like,
oh,
I might
just go home today.
I might apply to the police department.
Yeah, right. I think I'm going to quit.
I hope I die in a shootout at this point because this is going to ruin me.
So true.
This is going to ruin my week.
And it ruins your whole day.
No offense. Please, I hope nobody had a significant occurrence with insensitive thing I just said.
No, not at all. We don't wish that upon anybody.
No.
But
you guys know what I feel. I know
that's
you know what I'm talking
that's
about.
That feeling. You know that feeling. I know that feeling really well. And that whole feeling of just, you have those days where things just don't go right and you're just so frustrated, or then you have days where things go incredibly smooth and everything comes together and you're just like, how did this even happen? What kind of fairy dust were we on before we got to work today?
God, if I was a male barista, I'd cry all the way home.
Don't they usually? No?
I'm one more latte. No.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've seen those videos.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But it's
what time are we at?
Where do we get to? Well, I was just going to say it's been so nice to be in this field and industry. It's brought me to so many places. I've seen a ton of cool things that I didn't even know I could appreciate, know? And now I do.
Oh, dude.
Even just like one of the basic things I appreciate is, and I always said this when I worked with my first real like manager, right? And he was so good. I always said, I want to be like him where I can just walk onto a job and I can just instantly already know what the hell's going on.
Right.
Like I would be like, Eddie, how do you do this? How do you just always just know exactly what's going on?
Right.
And now I feel like I'm close to that. I feel like I can step onto a job and I can just kind of go, I kind of know what's happening. I know what's going on. I know what needs to be done. And it's great.
Yeah. I'm obviously very young. You're surprisingly old for how you look.
I'm like dirt.
I
age like a fine wine though.
So much older than you look. You look like every 90s band I ever followed.
Absolutely.
But are the same age as them.
Yeah.
But like from the 90s photo.
Yeah. Nice. That's awesome.
But what I was going to say is initiative. Mm-hmm. Like for all the young guys, again, I'm young, I know. Initiative on the job site, just doing things without being told.
Oh, dude.
I think is like the number one way to becoming that guy.
Yeah.
To where you just walk on a job site and you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Because just the initiative, I don't want to beat that word in and overuse it, but just like
it's
just working without being told, finding things to do.
Yeah.
Dude, the world clicks for you. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
That's I genuinely feel like between learning to just shut up and
mm-hmm.
listen and know that like he's not mad at you as a person.
Right.
He doesn't hate you as a person.
Yeah.
He hates what you just did because
right.
you're an idiot. You know,
sure.
You don't know yet. You're still an idiot. That's why an apprenticeship is that many years.
You're an idiot because you're inexperienced.
Right.
Because experience is the best teacher.
So just like stop taking it personal and just realizing that you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's not on. It's not. I mean,
Right.
it is on you sometimes, but so
Well,
like
of
just
course.
like
But it's a couple things, right? It's one, it's taking accountability for your own actions, right? That's huge in our industry. Take accountability for your own actions.
there's
right?
a bunch of like older guys listening to this. They've turned it off. They're
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah, they've been
or
there.
or they're like,
They've been there, done that.
or they're pulling their apprentice into their van
Right,
during
like,
lunch.
hey,
like,
listen
hey,
to
you're gonna
this.
eat lunch with me today.
Yeah, and
because
listen to
what
this.
these guys are
These
saying.
guys are telling you exactly what you need to hear. It's taking initiative on the job for
I don't
sure.
hate you, Bubba.
Right? But there is a huge divide between personal and business. And I had to learn that the hard way too. And this is that. So the manager I'm referencing, he taught me this lesson. It's not personal, it's business.
Right.
Right. And so that's where I take it now is it's like, I don't have a personal issue with anybody,
Right.
but I have a business issue with you. When you tell me that we have an inspection and then I work my tail off with my other guy and we work our fingers to the bone and we're tired every day for 2 weeks. And then we come upon this inspection and nothing happens. And then we go, well, what happened to the inspection? And you just say, well, it was these other people were supposed to schedule it. You know how frustrating that is?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well then why were we even concerned with that? Why was that even a question? Well, it was a question of how can I get these guys to be motivated to do this job that they are clearly outmanned for, right? When you go to a job site and you see 6, 7 other vehicles of the same company, and they've got 1 to 2 techs per vehicle, and then you are there either by yourself, maybe one other guy, and you have to keep pace with them.
Right.
I can do what I can. I mean, if you want me to live on site and never go home and just work until I die.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how it feels sometimes, right? These jobs, sometimes they feel that way where it's like, they just want us to work until we die on the job because there's so much to do, but we only have so much manpower.
Yeah. And that, again, we've said it a million times. That goes back to piggybacking,
It does.
And that's exactly why I love long jobs,
Yeah.
like I don't want I want
the quick turnaround.
I want a 6-month multi-million-dollar job. I miss running those.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh, there's 40 cables coming in. Like, oh, it's just the card readers. Pulling in, the other 3 per door.
Yeah.
But you actually have you can jump around, do what you need to do. And, that work's subbed out and you get to work with them. And there's all the time in the world to do it.
Yeah. And I think now I find
and
myself.
You can work your ass off.
Yeah, you can.
And then make a lot of extra money. But you can also slow down when,
right. Well, and you can
so much more
when you have a job like that, you can know the time frame of when you need things to be done by, right? The only problem.
It's way harder.
Yeah.
But you have so much more control.
You do. Like
an EST panel or a software house panel.
Yeah.
The world is your oyster. You have
for sure
all the options. It's way harder to program.
Yeah.
But if you do it well, it's so much better.
Oh yeah. And that speaks to also being confident and being really good at your job in detail, right? When you can label things correctly to help and thinking in the perspective too of the service guy that has to come back later on and service your system.
Yeah.
Right? Like that gets overlooked a lot by install.
Does it?
It really does. It really does. Because install guys, they get in and they go, hey, we just need to get this done. Right? That's the mindset. Right. Just get it done. Okay, well, when you're thinking, okay, I'm going to just get it done, you don't often stop and think about, well, if I put this device in this hard lid, how are they going to service it? How are they going to get to it later on when there's something in the way?
Yeah, and taking the time to notate it. But also
notation is very key to that too.
They sometimes, and I get it. It's not an excuse, because I was there too. a lot of the time the manager doesn't give you that time to go.
That's the thing is that you don't
button it up.
So
I just wanted to say for all the guys that are like, if I could,
Well, but see, I think that there's a lot to be said with that for an installer. It's like
maybe doing it as you go.
If I could take the time to do this extra labeling thing, I would. If I'm not being pressured to get things done in such a quick, timely manner because we don't have the manpower, because we only have 2 guys and we're just busting through these install jobs because there's another one tomorrow and there's another one next week and you got to go out of town next week.
So all my work looks great. It's beautiful. So nobody's going to know what they're doing when they get here. They're going to be like, what a beautiful bulk of I have no idea.
Right. Yeah. And then you're like, I didn't have the time to make it look as good as I wanted. So I did the best I could with the time that I had.
Right. Oh, there was a splice box way up there that it took us a week to find. And that's where the problem was.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And they put drop tile 20 feet below it.
Right. It's like, how were we supposed to access that? How are we supposed to access this duct detector 14 feet in the air with a 10-foot drop ceiling? You expect us to get a 14-foot ladder inside that drop ceiling? Awesome.
Look, ladies and gentlemen that are listening, people that go to Trader Joe's don't see Trader Joe's how we all see Trader Joe's. What they see is beautiful 7-layer bean dip. What we see is devices 20 feet above a drop tile ceiling
that you can't get to. That's incredibly difficult.
Is absolutely going to ruin somebody's life in 10 years.
And it's the only one that gets dirty every time.
The only way we could take this tiny lift all the way up through the ceiling tile
is to remove 4 tiles and the T-bar.
Wow. I'm really glad, it's nobody's fault, but I'm really glad that this box up here just happens to be directly above the freezers.
Yeah.
And
yes,
I have to harness in
just to get up there,
just to hang over this thing.
Yep.
To drop it 20 feet onto the...
My favorite is this museum.
I've never done that, OSHA.
No, we don't do things like that.
Call Trader Joe's, not me.
No, there's this museum that we went to and they had a bunch of smoke detector issues and all the smokes are like 35 to 40 feet in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be almost impossible to drive a boom lift in there. And that would be the only way you would get to them.
Damn, the wind is going off. Ooh. Sorry, not to derail this, but
yeah.
No, and it's just like,
it's like, who thought about that?
Because they build them like warehouses because they don't know what it's going to be.
What's going to be.
And I'm like, why did a strip mall need to be that high of ceilings?
Right.
What were you preparing for?
Yeah.
Did you think? I don't even know. I can't even think of an example of what you thought was going to happen here.
Right.
A 2-story Dick's? Like, what did you? What? And then it was a grocery store.
A Cabela's?
Where the ceiling's 12 feet above the floor, and then there's 28 feet above that.
Right? And you're like, and I'm supposed to service what?
It sucked in the first place. How much extra wire that was?
Oh, yeah. Oh, and the cost on wire, too. Oh, it's ridiculous.
God. Yeah, you get so solid.
I know. We do. Yeah.
Man.
I know. It's tough. It's tough being a fire guy, but you know what? It's so much fun. I'm sure Access has all of its glory, glitz, and glamour.
Oh,
too.
Yeah. No, I'm not even gonna lie. Mike pissed me off once. You guys know Mike, the main host of the show. Because I was like, dude, I had a crazy day. He's like, you do access control. What could possibly have gone wrong? And I'm like, dude, access control encloses so much shit, Mike. If you have your kids in the car, I'm sorry, I just said that.
What could possibly have gone wrong?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, if it was a card reader and a lock, and you're like, oh, badge on it? Oh, I see the relay change. I see the relay change states, okay? Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay, you didn't get that at the door? Okay, that's a bad lock, okay? Like, dude, no, it's not that easy. Like sometimes it's like, hey, so all of these doors are badge reader, no Rex, door contact, lock.
Right.
And they all work however they work. But there's also this station with 35 buttons on it that go to the 35 doors where you can set it in a locked or unlocked state.
Okay.
And then, so there's all of this going on all these other boards. And we're having actually problems with 3 of the doors. They're on different boards. So there's no there's no consistency.
Of course.
And
yep.
By the way, they all have different problems. So this one just doesn't work at all. This one, the button works, but the card reader doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And then this one, the card reader works, but when we hit unlock, it never unlocks.
Because it's unlocking a different door. Yeah.
And all just and it's just like no consistent.
Well, this brings us into that idea of the whole escape room.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah, the greatest idea I think is one of the most fantastic ideas. Tyler was so like, dude, he was, I can remember, I think it was BMW we were working on.
Yeah.
And he was so excited when we started talking about it.
Yeah.
Like he was losing his mind. He kept telling me, dude, he's like, I can't stop thinking about it. He's like, this is all I've been thinking about. Like, how do we make an escape room? And I'm like, dude, that would be so crazy.
I'm pretty sure it was my idea and he took credit for it.
Oh, did he? But it's still awesome either way.
What's so funny though is like neither one of us care because we both come up with so many great ideas.
Oh, dude, there's
that we both just use. That it was just like, but that one, he went real hard on like,
oh, dude, he did.
I just came up with and I'm like,
and I kept feeding him too.
Like, what are you talking about? He did come up with like the training part of it.
Yeah. But like using it as a training tool.
Right.
Well, because one day we were talking about it and I was just like, dude,
we were talking about bad management.
How crazy would it be like if we were in an escape room, bro, and like the door's shut and all of a sudden the fire alarm system's just going off. Horn strobes are just screaming at you. And the first thing you have to do is silence the panel.
Right.
But you don't know the passcode.
I take it back. He did come up with the idea.
Yeah.
It was based off of my joke because we were talking about
that's right.
Because he was talking about like he's like, why do I have to like figure every piece of this job out like one by one?
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah.
And I was like, dude, it's like sometimes it's like we're in an escape room and we're given 50% of the information.
Oh yeah.
And it's impossible to get the other 50%. And we're just like going around trying to find the 50% in this freaking escape room. And I made that joke. And then he was like,
oh yeah. And he just went off. And then the rest of the time, him and I were just throwing ideas back and forth about like how you could have a panel that's just going off and you need to find the key to silence it, right? But you can't find the key because when you go to enter the passcode, the default password for the panel, because there's a document box on the wall and it has a manual in there.
It would be so
But the
funny.
default password got changed.
There's a customer there.
Yeah.
You go and ask him for the code.
So you have to figure it out.
He's like, I don't know, man.
I don't know what it is.
I've only been here for a year.
We have those plans over there.
But I know there's a pink folder somewhere that I think has like the fire information. It's just like,
and you have to go find it. You find the password to silence because your first objective is to just silence the panel.
Right.
Because how do you think with a horn strobe just going me the whole time while you're trying to figure this out? Right. And so then you get this panel silenced. Okay, cool. Now how do we stop the alarm from going off? All right, now we do that. Okay, well now how do we unlock the doors? Now we have to figure out where's the fire holding up the access. Right. So the panel's in alarm and the access isn't working because it's fail safe, right?
What do you mean the elevators are all on the first floor and open?
Oh no, what do we do?
Yeah.
Right?
So like the idea, eventually when we get our own studio and all this stuff. And
it's such a great idea, dude.
Just
it's
having
such a great idea.
Having a low volt escape room that people can go to.
Just amazing. It would be amazing. And then the whole time you're on camera, you're being watched by everybody else outside and you're keeping score.
and it's on YouTube Live.
Oh
No,
my God. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh, dude. Yeah.
It would be so
No,
much
I wouldn't
fun.
do it live just because,
Well, yeah, you would have.
we're
too
blue
many-
collar.
Yeah.
People are going to say some things that
especially
I don't want put
in
out on
our
them.
field.
I'm going to say some things,
Yeah,
actually.
Right? I don't want to incriminate myself.
You designed half of it. Yeah, but I didn't design the other half.
Right.
I designed the access control part.
That is such a good idea. I just and just to touch on Tyler for a minute, because he's dude, first of all, I mean, he's such a great guy. He's such a great guy. I ever since I
just
met
a
him,
gem of a human being.
dude, ever since I met him, I love working with him. I love his ideas that he brings forth, and he's always telling me about his next ventures and his next things, and I love to spitball ideas with him.
Right.
It's just that different perspective. I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
I love that. Because nobody wants to be around somebody that's either always just a yes person, or at the same time somebody that like they're just there to work, so they don't want to have like any kind of outside conversation, or they don't want to like engage in that in any way. And it's like with Tyler, like we'll talk about new things that he's writing, and stuff that he's in the works of. Not stuff that he's already done, just stuff that he's new, right? He always throws me these new ideas. He's like, I've been thinking about this and going to that. And then I'll throw him a few questions about perspective things and different types of just, whatever. And then we crack jokes, and it's just a good time. He's such a good dude.
No, I mean, what he brings to the show, at first, it was, he has his own studio. He has a degree in producing, production, videography. I don't know. I'm not a cameraist. So I don't know what his, I don't
Is
know
that
what
a thing?
His, as far as I know, I'm like, I'll do algebra for you, but I don't know what a camera degree or like a videography or whatever degree is called. But no, anyways, and then Mike was always he's the talent, he's the experience. He had the gift of gab like me, but with 30 more years of this field behind it.
Listening to him, dude, you can hear it in his voice, just the depth of knowledge that he has.
He's the only one of us that can genuinely go for an hour and not stop and not be like, he doesn't
struggle to think of things to say.
If you find what he's saying somewhat interesting, you're good.
Totally.
That's how good he is. But going along with what you said, like that is really, besides like the equipment and the experience, is what Tyler brings to it. It's just like, it's like being in a writer's room with him, like me and him. Like if time can match, just skill and talent for like what we come up with and being able to execute it. I mean, we would be so far ahead of where we are. Not that we're not happy with where we are.
No, and you know what? It's so
we're
funny.
gonna get there. We're getting there,
and it's so funny and it's crazy, and especially for me too, because I've lived the life that I've led so long, but I've been a musician since I was a little kid,
right?
And it's really all I've ever truly wanted to do. Like if there was an option to say, you don't have to work anymore. You don't have to worry about paying bills. All you have to do is just what you want to do. Drumming is what I want to do.
Right.
Right. But there's responsibility, there's kids, there's family, there's all that, so you have to do whatever. And I'm happy to do the job that I do. Yeah. And the career path that I have now is that's awesome because I love it. And I do truly love it. I love what I do. But also, I do have this thing that I love to do on the side, and it has always plagued me from like just saying that I'm just a electrician, or I'm just, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's not just who I am, right? I'm also this very big thing over here that I've always loved and I always appreciated. And I find that with Tyler too, like with his writing, that's where he's at with that too. So him and I have connected a lot with that, and like how it infects our job, but it also affects our whole lives, because even for him having a wife and a family, and kids, that he's writing books and they're going to read someday, and that might inspire them, or the fact that his spouse is so accommodating to what his dreams and goals are with that, and allow him the ability to do that, right? Because that's a thing too,
and just his devotion.
Oh, he's crazy about it. He's crazy devoted to, which is awesome too, because I feel the same way. I mean, I practice every day.
Yeah.
I really try hard to make sure I have an hour to practice every day.
Yeah. And then not with both of you guys, not even just to, your side by side projects, like devotion to the family.
Yeah. Oh man, I tell you what, it was,
you guys,
it was an awesome weekend too, because, so my son is huge into Dragon Ball Z. And anything's Dragon Ball, he's huge into it. So that new game Sparking Zero just came out a couple of days ago. So I went and picked it up for him.
Oh yeah,
dude. And he was just over the moon. And it was crazy because it reminded me exactly of when I was about his age. Because when I was about his age is when PlayStation first came out.
How old is that?
So he's 9.
Okay.
So PlayStation first came out in the mid 90s, right? Like 95-ish, I think it was somewhere around there, 495, something like that. And so I remember getting that from my dad. And then I
was about to be born.
And I always remember, it's crazy because I always remember my dad like getting me new games or taking me to like rent games, at the time when you could go rent games like Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, stuff like that. And you could rent games. And then, so like I'd go with him on the weekend and I'd rent a new game, and I just remember like every time I'd get a game, like I'd get so excited about it and I'd start playing it and I'd call like, Dad, come check this out. Come take a look at this,
Yeah.
He never really played with me though, but he would always come look at it. Right. But like, no, dude, my son was just going nuts and he's like, Dad, come here, check this out. So we would set up and battle, have tournament fights and stuff. And he's telling me about all the characters. And of course he's kicking my tail to no end because he's so good at it. Just instantly.
No, I played 3v1 Smash Bros against a 12-year-old. And it was like, I think we did, I called it best out of 5. Just to save face, but we did lose 3 straight. All 3
exactly.
I was like, he was best out of 5. Yeah. I mean, hey, it was a clean sweep. It was a clean sweep.
I have no shame because in the age that I'm becoming, I do not play video games all that much anymore.
Because I have a job.
Well, I mean, I could throw that out there.
Todd. Of course you're good at it. No, I'm just good at it.
Yeah, exactly. Of course you're good at it. You do it all day, every day.
Until he was like, man, you really suck.
Yeah. And then you're like, wait a minute.
I was like, there's a toilet down here, isn't there?
We give you a swirly and show it's like.
This isn't my kid. It's not even the person whose house I'm at as kid. It's their nephew.
No, but it was just, it was so cool to just think back to like when I was young and I was showing my dad stuff. Right. And then like, now I'm doing it with my kid, and it's just awesome. I love that. But yeah, family is huge. And to Tyler too, I know. And it was so funny because we were working a Ross and I was looking for something for my son because Ross always has these Dragon Ball Z figures and I always get them for my son. So I always like to see if they have new ones that I haven't gotten yet. And I pointed to one thing and it was a blow up punching bag.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, Tyler, you should so get that for your boy. And he did.
Did he?
Dude, he did. And not only did he, but then his son, he told me like the next week, he was like, dude, he freaking loved that thing.
Right.
I'm like, of course, because
God, I don't want to say his kid's name, but it's the coolest name.
It is a cool.
It's such a cool name.
Yeah.
But I think if I could wrap up the second hour of this, I would say, all in all, don't be too soft on your coworkers and apprentices.
No,
because
don't.
It
doesn't do them any
favors.
favors.
A toxic environment does them no favors.
Right.
And really doesn't you no favors because then they get comfortable. Yeah. And then when you need help, who you gonna call?
Right.
You don't got the Ghostbusters. They don't pull wire.
Yeah.
So, but also, don't be way too hard. The guy who just doesn't want to teach anybody anything.
There's a balance.
Or,
there is definitely a balance. But I think honesty and openness.
God, that balance is so important because a lot, like it used to be people were way too hard.
Yeah.
Nice. And then now people are way too soft.
Yeah.
And now I feel like a lot more people are getting fired now than the last, like 10 years ago when I got in.
It's so true.
Dude, no one was getting fired.
No.
People were quitting because they either like couldn't handle it or
and people will just, and I've learned.
But nobody wants to say anything to anybody, and it creates this terrible toxic environment.
Well, it does. And I think too, if I have any advice at all to anybody coming up new, or even somebody that's a journeyman that struggles to get along with people and work, I would say be open to criticism, be accountable for your actions, and try your best to listen and learn.
And if you make that change, the rest is just gonna come.
Oh yeah.
I think you're going to find that your coworkers are a lot nicer to you.
Yeah. And they'll appreciate you too for your honesty and your openness and your ability to just, even if maybe it wasn't you, but you kind of take it on and just say, yeah, that's my bad. I'll fix it. Some people really, they'll, because you're taking something off of their plate. You know what I mean? Because we don't always know what people are going through or what they're dealing with or where they're getting pressure from. And so sometimes if you can just take a little bit and shoulder it and alleviate that, then they'll appreciate you more.
And if the old guy is just, real gruff, loud, speaks, that's probably just how he talks.
Yeah.
Stop taking it so personal. It drives me nuts. Yeah. You're like, oh, he talked to you the same way he talks to everybody else.
Well, that's the thing. If you can find,
dude,
if you find that guy talking to you and you didn't like it, but then you see him doing it to somebody else, you just kind of go, you know what? That's just how that guy is.
He either doesn't know that he sounds like that, and good luck changing that,
or he does, and he just doesn't care.
It. If you're trying to change it at that point, it's just like grow up.
Yeah.
That's just how he talks to everybody. He's obviously not coming at you like that.
Yeah.
And two, who cares anyways?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, does it really matter?
If you just be likable.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's gonna help you in every facet of your life. Whether it's personal, whether it's with clients.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
You're just like, you have this guy that's just like an old grumpy bastard who's just a freaking nightmare to be around. But that's just how he always is. Yeah. You're just like, whatever. I can get used to this.
Yep.
Dude, the first time or the next time or whatever you get screamed at by a client, you're going to be like, this isn't at me. So I'm obviously going to have a little bit of nerves about it.
Sure.
But I'm not going to shut down because I've been through this before. I know that this is irritation.
Yeah.
Moving around me like wind on a car, baby.
That's right.
And then just work on it.
Yeah.
But dude, if you can't even handle the old grumpy, if you can't even handle grumpy,
if you're in this field, in this industry, and you can't handle that, you've got a long road to go.
You're not going to make it to Mordor.
No.
That ring's not making it to the volcano.
But Bruce Lee said something amazing, and he said, "Be like water." He said, "When you pour water into a bowl, it becomes the bowl. When you pour it into a cup, it becomes the cup." So if you can adapt yourself to your surroundings and your settings, then you will find life a lot easier to just be adaptable and just change with the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect way to end this.
Fantastic. I really appreciate you for having me on.
Dude, I appreciate you. Dude, it's like midnight. You've been a trooper.
We got this.
Dude, we recorded from like 10 to midnight.
Nice.
Just nailed it. But yeah, this has been a long time in the works, and can't wait to do a round table with you, Gerardo, and Adrian.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be a lot of fun.
That is going to be a blast.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that for sure.
But anyways, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to the Half Watt Podcast. We always want to hear from you, and we encourage you to email us at halfwattpod@gmail.com with questions or even your own stories. Funny, crazy, or praiseworthy, we want to hear it all. You can follow us on Instagram at halfwattpod to stay up to date on our feed. And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And share us with a friend, the best way to help us grow. The Half Watt Podcast is a production of Now Hear This Studios.